Mike, it's good to see you. Congratulations on your nomination.
You got it, buddy. Thanks. Thank you so much. It's always good to see you, Michael Key.
And it's always good to see you. Is that the Ramon shirt? But it says Ramon instead of Ramones. So,
It's just
okay.
Johnny Ramone. It's Johnny Ramone and Vincent Gallo. They were
There we
buddies.
go.
He's like some kind of distant cousin of mine. So, so there you go.
Ah, well, greatness seems to run in the family then.
Yeah, man. Bunch of artists all over here.
So a different man. Seeing that makeup, it was nostalgic for me because it reminded me so much of makeups you've done at IMATS. Actually, I would say deformity is not something that's new to you. You've certainly played in that sandbox. Tell me how you came to be a part of this movie.
Well, actually, Sebastian Stan was reached out to me. He texted me. A friend of ours, Justin Raleigh, actually passed along his number, or my number to him. And Justin, I go way back with Justin, friend of mine, and he has his own studio and all that stuff. But yeah, he passed along Sebastian, and Sebastian called me about a job that he was doing in New York, and he gave me a little bit of a description, and I was immediately interested because it deals with the elephant man condition called neurofibromatosis, which I'm very familiar with because, being a sculptor and being an artist and stuff and into skin and all that, it's like this really crazy thing that, people go through, but it's just visually amazing, visually beautiful and incredible. How often would you want to, do you get an elephant man type job, where, you get to do this wild makeup on someone recognizable and have a very subtle and emotional and funny performance. It's just a really cool full circle thing because The Elephant Man was the first movie I ever saw. I was like 4 years old.
Wow. That was what were you doing watching that at 4 years old? That's a pretty serious film.
Yeah, dude, that was on HBO when HBO first came out in like 1981. It came out like finally to like audiences like through cable. So it was like 1981 was like it was everywhere. And that movie just came out the year prior. So they would play that. They used to play that movie like 4 times a day or something. Like, I don't know what who was programming the HBO at that time, but it was like Close Encounters and Ghostbusters, and Ghostbusters actually came out on a Christmas one year, and HBO played it like the night it came out in the theater. They said Merry Christmas, and they played like Ghostbusters right when it came out. But in the early 80s, there was all these like movies that were, home box office. They were just playing like a cycle of about 20 films. And Elephant Man was
Kind
one
of
of them.
like MTV was showing Thriller like nonstop full rotation for a few years there too.
Yeah,
That's nice when
yeah,
they
totally.
have
And that
makeup
was the thing
pieces
too.
to get out like that.
Yeah, and that was the thing too. That really drove me over the edge because Elephant Man was, I didn't know it was makeup. I was just like, this is a weird, scary thing for me. Black and white movie. But when Thriller came out, which was really like, I don't even know, like a year or two later after that movie was on TV, they showed Rick Baker, who, became my idol, and I was just completely worshiping, everything that he possibly could have done. And I was still very young, but that was my real introduction to prosthetics and makeup, was watching him glue on the makeup on Michael Jackson, and he's doing zombie, he's doing werewolf, he's peeling his makeup off of himself. And I'm like, all right, this is what I want to do. That was like what I knew I wanted to do that after I saw that.
And so Sebastian calls you and says, I'm doing this makeup and, I have to have this makeup done. And had seen any of your work? Did you guys have any history?
Oh yeah. He already, he knew. I listen, I can't say like, oh, you're a fan of mine, but like he knew everything. He's a film fan, so he knows who people are and, their work level and quality and all that. And And he really, really pushed for me to do it. He really wanted me to do it. He was going to try anything he possibly could to get me to do it, So I was like, all right, he's so persistent. And I really want to do it if I can, because I was questioning doing it because I was doing Marvelous Miss Maisel at the same time, where I had all these like kind of sporadic aging makeups happening throughout this season. And it was tricky to do because it was filming simultaneously. So I arranged, like doing Sebastian's makeup super early in the morning at my studio apartment, which I have like a whole setup there. I have tables and lighting and all this stuff, like a whole makeup room and everything. And he lived not too far away. So I was like, why don't you just come here? We'll do the makeup. I'll go to my other job after, do a bunch of other makeups there. And then, we'll figure it out, and that's what he did. So he's great. I mean, with any makeup, you have to have an actor who's very cooperative and very like tuned into what this is for. Now, a lot of the time you get these jobs where you're like, either an unknown person is in a makeup and they're awesome, or maybe not. But it's crucial to the storytelling of it. Someone like Colin Farrell, someone like Sebastian Stan, they couldn't be better. So I have been so lucky and super fortunate. Colin Farrell, Sebastian Stan will do anything to make sure it's good. So we would do that. So he would wander around New York after the makeup was done, because sometimes some days they were not ready for him. So he was like on subways, he was going to stores, he was doing stuff and seeing naturally how people would react to him. And he learned a lot about how to play this and how to feel in the makeup, like how Adam Pearson must experience, which is the makeup is based on his face and based on his condition, which is the Elephant Man condition. And Adam Pearson is the perfect example of someone who completely owns himself. He is the funniest, most friendly, amazing actor, amazing guy, just a really, really great person. And when you meet him in person, if you ever get a chance to meet him, you would never even know that he has that condition. Like his aura is surrounding him, of just like Oswald in that film. So, and that was the whole point of it all. The whole point of that film really was you don't have to rely on trying to be perfect to know who you are. And in fact, Sebastian in the film tries to bring his face back to what it used to be after he goes through this radical surgery. But he can't, so he wears a mask, and we built a mask for it, and then he wears it in this comedic way, and it's a very fun, interesting film if you haven't seen it.
It's really something that the plot's kind of like a Twilight Zone in that, it's when, be careful what you wish for. That was a constant theme that was within Twilight Zone, like Mickey Rooney, who's a jockey and he's all washed up, and then he wants to be a big man, and he's huge, and then he gets the phone call for the great race. It just happens that way.
Oh, it's great. It's like Eye of the Beholder. It's also like, when all the rich kids want their dad to die or whatever, you just wear this mask and they take it off and they are like disfigured, and they can't get rid of that. It's like a curse, the mask they wear, and then they have this deformed face on their face, which is so cool.
With Adam being in the film, and he's the real deal, and you've got your makeup, did you have any concerns of like, wow, that's always a hard thing, like an age makeup. If you had an age makeup and it's in a scene with other people that are older, that's the hardest contrast you can have.
Oh, totally.
Was there any
that's like the Rick Baker problem. Yeah, that's like, that's like, when Rick Baker was building the gorillas for Gorillas in the Mist, it's like, okay, we'll build all these gorillas, but then they want to put gorillas in the movie, and he's like, oh, fuck, like, they're going to be side by side with suits. It's like, shit, but actually it looked great. So it's a little bit that, I could never be God. I could never create like nature. That's the winner of all, time. Artists can only try to represent a form, a derivative of nature in some sense. So my kind of style, my sculptures, my whatever, might look realistic, but they're all tricks. All of it are tricks. Like even if you get microscopic, it's clay. it's little pores and little lines and things like that. And we try our best to fool the audience, to fool you, and give the illusion that it's moving and then it's soft and all that stuff. But it's nothing compared to God. It's nothing compared to nature. So that's always a battle. It's always a battle. I mean, it's like going one-on-one with God is like you'll always lose. So
True.
it's always a quest. But it was intimidating. But I had changed the makeup a little bit towards what Adam's appearance was, because I just gave him a little bit more tumors and things like that, and they were scabbing up and getting crusty and peeling off and all that. So Adam's face doesn't do that. So I kind of had to adapt the design and to fit Sebastian's face. So it had to work for him as a practical makeup without, elaborate like animatronics inside of it or something, So it had to kind of be a little bit different than his. And I don't know if you can see this in video, but you can see this is without paint. This is what it looks like without any paint on it. But, you can see how distorted and twisted it is on Sebastian's face, on his eye, and how the ear is lower and all that stuff, So it's kind of a fascinating disease that does all these interesting things. And I'm only just trying to replicate, that type of condition,
It's interesting seeing that photo and having seen the other ones. It really shows what the paint job is contributing to it. Not just making it look like flesh, but just the highlight and shadow of what you decided to accentuate. I noticed looking at the time lapse of the makeup, you did it all as one big piece, which is a big silicone piece. Sounds like a challenging thing to try to get on.
Oh yeah,
and get registered in the right place. Tell me about that.
Oh, you know how it is. I mean, it's hard. I mean, Dick Smith developed the overlapping appliance thing because the foam latex shrinking and all of that. And he was, when you do something in one big piece, it's hard to glue on, it's shrunken and it's not in the right place. But silicone is kind of backwards. It's kind of like bigger, it's almost bigger in some sense. So, and if you do break it up into many pieces, which we do also, this is so complicated of convolutions going all over the face and all that. It would be harder for doing like multiple pieces gluing on. It would take so much more time, and we were so limited with time that I thought that if we made a collapsible mold that broke apart like a puzzle inside and had all these seams, because it was wrapping around, if we had all the seams coming from the inside, it would be a better decision than to really divide it up or break it up, because then it would be more time consuming for us seaming it, and it would be more time consuming to glue it on if it was multiple pieces. So I tried to group things as much as possible, because when you're in a studio and you're sculpting, it's all one unit, whatever it is, even if it's like pieces that are blending into the face, it's all one thing. And that's the goal, so it's not like a cool thing that it's 900 pieces, it's actually more inconvenient, and you have to kind of engineer your makeups to work for what the purpose is, limited time, limited space, doing another job simultaneously, like seams, all these things, so all those things were, kind of packed in. I did have a little eyelid piece separate. I did have a lower lip that was separate, and little pieces and things on his neck. And that was, I thought, enough pieces to break up. And if I could get away with a bigger piece, it would hold all that strange textural convolutions going on all over the place easier.
How long was the application time?
Really, it was pretty quick. There were days where it was like an hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half, all under 2 hours, So, and that was also a benefit to pre-painting. And I had pre-painted all the pieces each day. And then it was just a matter of like gluing it on and tying it in at the end of the day, or not at the end of the makeup, and then gluing the hair pieces on. But it was like, how can I time save everything possible, to, it's a difficult makeup to wear as one eye is closed. It's completely visionless. The other ear is completely closed. It's completely, we made a hole for the ear, but you still, you can't hear. When equilibrium is off, it's hard. So how do we get him in and out and shoot this thing, as economical as possible? And that's also part of being like a makeup designer. You have to think of these things. You have to think of like engineering stuff and timing and all that. It's just not like you just make this thing and like, shit, I don't know what to do with it now. Like, fuck you, I built it. It's like, that's so not production friendly. And you really have to think of like, going into I always use the example as like almost a war. It's not really like, you're not getting killed and shot or something, but it's like a war. You prepare for these things, you prepare for things falling apart. How do we fix them? What's the easiest sense, can I make a lip that can come off and replace if I have to, and that's another thing with intrinsic coloring. I try to intrinsically tint my lips, all the lips. I try to intrinsic anything that has an eyelid or anything like that, because those are always the areas that come off with paint, so if you can get there like 75% with the intrinsic coloring inside the piece, it can't rub off, so that's a cool thing that we've kind of developed, that it's harder to produce those pieces, but it's better for the actor. It's better for maintenance, and it's, things come up, sweat and all this stuff like that, and edges come up, and trying to glue weird stuff down in difficult positions. But, it's like, you have to try to understand those missiles and bullets and things coming in so that you can prepare and try to better yourself for the next round.
What about the weight of silicone? This is, the areas of this are very thick in certain spots. It was
Right.
that an issue at all, having it to be that thick?
Yeah, so I could show again, if anyone's gonna see this, you could see how crooked and all of that, and if you compare it to side by side with Sebastian's face, he's got a very square jaw, very even. So I had to break that up, and I had to this one side is be much thinner than this side. So some of the pieces of the makeup are so thin, almost clear, almost like nothing there. And some of the pieces are much thicker. And going in thinking that, we also developed a silicone that was almost like a hybrid of a foam latex and a silicone. It's just a very fast return on skin. It doesn't like mush in, and it's not so heavy. It's this like fluffy kind of bouncy thing, but it's also translucent. So we used that. We didn't core anything out or anything. We didn't feel like we needed to. It just held its shape very well without like falling apart. So that was a cool thing that we did for this, and it was at perfect use for this, because usually if you're using a platinum silicone, the specific kind that a lot of people use, like Platsil, it's very heavy, it's very dense, so
Yeah.
this particular material is a little bit fluffier and lighter, probably half the weight, so I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to use this, because of the weight and the size differences on one side of the face as opposed to another. So these were all things that kind of, you're thinking about, like, should I use this? Should I use this material? So what Dick Smith had taught me was to learn how to adapt. You have to adapt to, you can have these plans, but you have to like adapt to the environment, like the situation, like if this glue doesn't work, add this thing. If this powder doesn't work, find another one. Then you can add this other thing to it. Use this weird material that you would never use before. So it's like learning that as a kid, and like that mantra of adapting, is really where advancement comes in. Advancement comes in through adapting to something that's not supposed to be normal, and you make it better, and then all of a sudden it becomes industry standard, just like Amadeus, like how Dick kind of invents packs, because he wants to glue a beard on, and then with makeup, it's kind of too creamy and all that stuff, so he's like, okay, I'm going to use packs here. And it becomes Pax, and everyone knows what Pax is. But he invented it basically in that time period because of these reasons, because you couldn't glue hair to creamy makeup. It would just like fall off, it was hard to do. So he creates this thing, this random product in his garage or in this basement, and all of a sudden, like, everyone's using it, so it's, these things happen, through desperation and adaptation, you get advancement,
Speaking of glue, which glue did you use for this job?
I think this was Telesis 8F. And we also used another glue around the mouth called No Tape, which we also thin with the thinner, 8F thinner, which is like a toupee glue. It's like super, super strong glue, like that you don't want to use on a makeup because it's like really hard to get off. But like around mouth areas, that's like a really good glue. It's called No Tape. You can buy it on Amazon and stuff. But we dilute it with the thinner, and like it makes this little area around noses and around like mouths that like really bond better,
That's cool. The pictures of your molds, they look super clean as usual. Who made those for you?
That's Trent Taft and Olivia Lagoon. They or Lagun, however she says it. She'll correct me all the time. But they're great, and Trent is really the main person there, manufacturing and running pieces and things like that at this point now. But he's super smart and amazing person in the laboratory, and also a great artist. So Olivia too, she's very smart, like an engineer.
How many days did you apply the makeup?
Well, the shoot only was about 22 days, something like that. So a little bit more than half that we did the makeup. And I think we did the makeup like with tests and stuff. I think we did like 15, 16 times or something like that, and then the rest of the film, he was Sebastian Stan, just as playing Edward himself, or Guy. He changes his name in the film to Guy. And then he plays out the rest of the film that way.
And painting, I'm assuming it's all done in alcohol colors, right?
Painting was part airbrush acrylic, part bluebird airbrush, and part scale illustrator. So it's like, it depends on what I want to do. It depends on what kind of intensity I want to try and go for. I'm kind of have these mixed bag of colors and things, and sometimes I have to mix my own stuff from either Skin Illustrator or acrylics or something, but it's all pretty much airbrushed. There's no real creamy makeups or anything like that. It's all Super Baldies mixed with these colors. So the Super Baldies actually bites into the baldies of the encapsulant material for the silicone. So the paint stays and embeds itself in a little bit better. It could still rub off, but it's more of a chance to bond on, so that's an additional thing that we also do.
That's pretty cool. And so it doesn't clog up any of the pores that you've meticulously sculpted in.
No, I mean, the paint is so thin, it's so thin. It's like just inks, almost like you can do all types of stuff, different layers of color and all that, and it still stays so super thin. You're only introducing a little bit of the Baldies dilution with 99% alcohol, and you're only introducing a little bit of that when it's spraying out. It has to be thin enough to spray out, and then also it just bonds, but it's not 100%. And that's why we also intrinsically tint in the silicone itself from the mold backwards. And the cool thing is that now I've pushed Trent to the oblivion of testing, of tinting the molds, the negatives in epoxy flesh tone, so I could actually know what color I want to intrinsically, put in there, so you could actually see it. Because a lot of time the material is gray, and it's hard to tell what's going on. So if you have the luxury, it's very like weird combination of mixing, but it's flesh, and you could see it. You could see it better. So when the piece is more toned in the flesh tone, and when it comes out backwards, you've done something in the mold that's different. That's bonded, and you can kind of control it a little bit better.
What did he make the molds out of?
They were syntactic epoxy.
Yeah.
And I think the collapsible, there's parts of the collapsible that might be 1630, TC 1630, which is a BJB product. So there's like parts of it that are 1630, but I think when you're making the mold, there's like a way when you have to make like 1630 pieces and then pull them out and then replace it with a syntactic, and then you could like remake it in that piece. But they're both like being used for certain reasons during the mold making process to get a collapsible mold to work. You have basically a plate with like the skinny centerpiece on this particular mold that like these side pieces connect to. So there's like a flat plate sort of with this like dividing line in the middle with like a nose and stuff. And also on the nose, I kind of came up with something mold making wise, because one side of the nose, and I'll show you again, is thinner than the other side of the nose. And that was catching an undercut from this front. So I thought it would be cool if we in the positive carved like a square out in the positive, and then recast a super hard shore rubber in that area that would snap on, like with a key on the inside, and snap on. So when you're demolding it and it catches that undercut, it's still hard enough. It's not like epoxy, but it's just inside a nose that rubber piece would actually like be able to pop out and be in the appliance when you run the appliance, so that the you could peel that out later and then stick it back on the mold, and it's hard enough to hold its shape and it keys itself in, So I was like, that would work, just in concept and theory, I thought of that, and was like, okay, let's do that there, because I don't want to flash out a nose because it fucks up the whole form. It doesn't fit right. So I was like, I just want the true self of the nose, the curve of it. So that little section on the thinner side was a hard shore rubber that would pop out and snap on,
That's an awesome way to solve an undercut. You tell me about the hair pieces. Was it a full wig or was it partial? Because I was looking at one of the photos that looked like it was punched in. Tell me about that.
Yeah, sure. So for the sake of time, actually, we decided to make like a toupee. Actually, there was a toupee that kind of like a partial wig, because in a time constraint, you don't want to deal with like a full wig. And the hair was not different from his own hair color. So even with Penguin and Sebastian Stan's like hair were like similar hair color. So like for the Penguin, we did like a partial wig that combed into Colin Farrell's hair, and same thing with Sebastian Stan. We flattened his hair with gaff quat and then put a few pieces of opsite over it, and flattened real good, like really flat, like crazy. You could kind of stretch it, and then packs over that. And then the appliance goes over that, and then the hairpiece comes into his own hair. So it's much easier. I feel like it looks more real. If you can get away with that, like that's the way to go, because then you don't have like weird stuff going on. You don't have like flatten someone's hair unless they're bald already. That's like the ideal scenario. But if they're hair, and a lot of times women have longer hair too, you basically have like a bulging kind of thing going on, no matter how good of a wig maker you are. So, or a hairstylist, or a makeup artist, like we basically made a partial that combs in, and, you hope you save time and you hope it looks as good, so, that was partial. None of it was punched. It was really just a very fine, like English lace and a little eyebrow. And then Pamela Goldhammer made a little eyelash for the eye that's a little lower. And then Izzy Galindo made the wig for me in my workshop, for that, toupee.
I'm sure that was a lot easier for Sebastian too, to have the back of his head open, allow it to breathe a little bit, especially since his face is so covered. So
Totally.
keep down his heat a bit. So
Absolutely.
The bake-off was just recent, but a very, very different bake-off because of the California fires. It wasn't able to meet in person, so the bake-off was like this, like what we're doing. So what was that like? And also within that, when you're looking at the screen, are you seeing just a wide, is it like a Zoom call where everybody, it would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all that.
It's a Zoom thing. I mean, it's, it's going back to like pandemic days, it's like, the in-person thing is the best, if you could do it. But I mean, it was just too unsafe of a time, like people's homes were like burning and shit, and it's like a disastrous situation. It was even good that we even did it. Even if people think that it's selfish or something, I think people look to these things as entertainment to get their mind off of troubles and stuff, instead of just focusing on troubles. It's like the whole thing of being an artist, or not, like, you're not saving the world, but you know what, like, does everyone need to save the world every second? There are people designed to save the world. I want some great firefighters or something saving my life. I don't want to be the one saving people in a fire, because I would suck at that. Like, I'd rather do something good for humanity to like make them enjoy themselves, like make cool art that they would like, and like people live their lives on things they like. They want to surround themselves with things they like. So it's all crucial, so it's none of it is real selfish. I feel that, it's unfortunate what happened. And I think it's, a cool thing that Zoom exists, and I think you have to find a positive way to keep something going, a legacy of what this is going, the awards.
And speaking of awards, it's coming up so darn fast. It's March 2nd. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, wild.
Then you get to walk down the red carpet and do this again. And this is, remind me, how many nominations do you have now?
This is the third one now. Which is
cool. You
got
number 3, so maybe 3's the charm. Maybe that's what it's going to be.
That'd be cool. I mean, everything's good. I mean, all the work's good. It's always, a cool thing to be a part of and to be included. and to be recognized by peers and others in the industry to like, even get you nominated, and that's a really awesome thing because there's so many other factors at play with, why something wins. Sometimes it's not like the best work, but it's also kind of like the accumulation of what's in the film. There might be a makeup in there that's kind of weird or something, but the whole scheme of the movie, the majority of the movie have great makeups, so it's kind of like this thing, and it's also advertising and all that. So it's really like getting nominated alone is like the greatest thing, so you never know what's going to happen.
Because all those Academy members, most of them are making the decision on which makeup to vote on in just a few seconds because they're not as emotionally involved in it. So I wholeheartedly agree to your point. Is getting nominated is huge. And speaking of that, has that changed conversations with you with filmmakers and projects like, oh no, this is Mike Marino, he's the Oscar nominee now. Does it squelch much of people questioning like?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it's a prestigious thing. I mean, it's like having being a general or something, getting a medal or whatever. But it's awesome. It's like the highest honor of the film community. And it's a really cool thing. And I love the Oscars. It's really, does it make you get another job? I mean, you're dealing with producers. Producers are just like, are you cheaper? Like Rick Baker, or Stan Winston, Rob Bottin, are you cheaper? Like, who's cheaper? Sometimes it's like that. And then sometimes it's like, okay, I really want this person because, that style is what I like, or I like that person's personality or whatever. So it's like, you're all dealing with like a group of people who are at the level of being nominated and winning and all of that. And, to me, I don't think I get more jobs, but I think it's a cool thing to do. It's an achievement, but, I haven't seen more work, Well,
hopefully they don't get to the point where it's, oh, no. Yeah, like if, once you're going to end up having a shelf full of Oscars, I have no doubt. And they go, cool. Oh, we can't afford him. He's an Oscar winner. He's too much money.
Well, too much money is, it's really not though, because I think they made a hell of a lot more money in the past than we're making now because, I'm not fucking driving Maseratis around right now, so, I'm looking to pay the bills,
Yeah. I hear that. Well, my friend, good luck on March 2nd. It'd be exciting to see yet another contest on this. And like I said, no doubt you're going to end up winning, if not this one at some point. And I think you will end up having a whole shelf full. And then you have to come back and talk to us again and tell us about how awesome it was to win.
Always love talking to you. Thank you so much. And thanks for the best wishes, man. I mean, and Makeup Artist Magazine was always the standard of makeup and brought everybody together. It's still very out there as a respected thing. So thanks for having me.
You bet, buddy. Thank you so much.